This is From the Pro, conversations with the creators of the proletariat. Here's Jim Bratton.
Here is a continuation of our interview with Bret McCormick. Welcome to Bret McCormick at the Proletariat, podcast part 2, as we explore the other creative aspects. You just had too much going on to do it in one podcast. Let's talk about your other creative aspects. You want to, that are here in particular. Suppose we talk about the writing that you have here. How many books have you written?
As an author, an exclusive author of a piece, I've probably done about 7. But then what I'm most known for is anthologies, curating anthologies of short stories. And I've probably done about another 10 books where I curated an anthology.
And by the way, for our listeners who are going to drop by the Proletariat, those are available for sale.
We do have some for sale here.
And of course, at the end of this, we'll also put your contact information or your social media, et cetera, whatever it takes to buy.
Right.
If they don't get a chance to come by here and buy it. So, give me a title or two of the books and let's talk about how they came to be. Let's start maybe with some of the older ones first.
Okay. Let's see. Of the ones I've got here, I have a novel called Skin Dreams. It's about there's a famous B movie that was made by a friend of mine, S.F. Brownrigg out of Dallas.
Yeah.
It's called Poor White Trash Part 2. Poor White Trash Part 2 had nothing to do with Poor White Trash Part 1. And that inspired me to write a novel called Poor White Trash Part 3 that had nothing to do with either of those.
There's nothing wrong with writing on a fairly successful title, is there?
So I started writing this novel called Poor White Trash Part 3. And of course, the publisher was like, why would we call this Poor White Trash Part 3? They're going to wonder where the other 2 are. Nobody's going to buy it because they always want to buy the first one first. So I changed it to Skin Dreams. And that's because the main character becomes a tattoo artist in Austin. She was put in a mental institute at the age of 10 because she had killed her stepfather. And it's justified when you learn the backstory. Very traumatic. The child didn't understand what was going on. She killed, but everybody thought she was crazy. And anyway, she realizes she's not crazy like the other people in the institution are. At age 18, when she matriculates out and goes to this sort of halfway house, she runs away. And as she's hitchhiking to Austin, she knows she wants a better life than what she's got. She doesn't know what it's going to be. She just formulates the idea on the way of becoming a tattoo artist, and then she becomes one. But she gets caught up in this big, conspiracy involving big politicians and stuff who have this sort of satanic underground community where they kidnap and sacrifice people and all this kind of stuff. So it's
great. I mean, I know some of the people in the building have already bought several copies of your publications that are here. That's one. Most time, I'm assuming followed this.
My best-selling book is a nonfiction book entitled Texas Schlock, and it's an examination of many of the extremely low-budget science fiction and horror films that have been shot in the state of Texas, starting in the 1950s with Larry Buchanan, and then moving forward to the present day.
This would be when you say low-budget shocker style, that'd be slasher type?
Stuff like that. Almost everybody's seen a Larry Buchanan movie late at night, whether they know it or not. He did Mars Needs Women. He did A Bullet for Pretty Boy. He did It's Alive. Gosh.
These are great titles.
Yeah, all sorts of crazy, no-budget movies that were made in Dallas during the 1960s mostly.
Precursor to the Austin-based movies that began like Linklaters and
right, exactly
those careers.
There was a sort of a burst of people making independent movies for the drive-in release out of Dallas because of a company called Jameson. Jameson was, in the 1970s, it was the longest running nonstop motion pictures production studio in America, because it had started like in 1908.
Really?
And it went all the way through to the mid to late 70s when old man Jameson died. He was a brilliant guy who, when silent movies became big, he bought a theater and put himself through engineering school with the money from the theater as a young man. And then he invented a bunch of stuff like a small processing unit that was used by almost every TV station in America.
That was the closest to portable film that they had. So
a lot of people that worked for Jameson ended up going out on their own and experimenting with these exploitation movies.
That was for the drive-in theater. Second wave of the exploitation Class B movies
was the VHS explosion of the 1980s, and that's when I came on the scene and started making really dirt cheap movies and getting them released on VHS tapes into home rental stores, which were a big thing back then. A lot of people don't know that now.
No, I guess there's a whole bunch of people who never heard of Blockbuster or any of the other super successful.
And the real boom was before Blockbuster.
Oh, well before that. Yeah, that
the
was
mom and pop stores were where a lot of people made money before Blockbuster came out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, Blockbuster was considered king of an industry that no longer exists. A step. Anyway, take me through making a B movie.
Making a B movie
in the 80s.
In the 80s, first of all, everything had to be, if you wanted to be taken seriously, if you wanted any kind of hopes for distribution, had to shoot on film. So that meant, at the bare minimum, 16 millimeter, preferably 35, which was a very expensive proposition. So even if you were doing something where nobody got paid and all your locations were free and the screenplay was free, et cetera, it was still going to cost you over $10,000.
Film stock?
Just for film stock and processing and all of the post-production expenses that you would necessarily have to incur. It was a far cry from today where people are going out with their cell phones and shooting and editing on their laptop or their desktop computer at home with software that they download for free.
When you would start, if you were producing a film, first of all, I guess you'd have to figure out where you're going to come up with the $10,000 for the post-production side of it.
I would always go to a distributor. Once I had made 4 or 5 films, I could go to a distributor and I would say, okay, let's make a deal for something you want.
Right.
So basically the distributor would tell me what story they wanted. Either they had a script or they'd tell me a script they wanted me to write. Once we agreed upon terms and everything, then from the day I started writing the script to the day I delivered the film was usually a 90-day turnaround because I couldn't afford to drag it out any longer than that because I wouldn't make any money if it took any longer than that.
90-day turnaround.
So I would write the script, I would cast the film, I would hire the crew, we would shoot it in usually 2 weeks' time, and then post-production would begin. Hopefully everything went well during post-production, and we hit our delivery date.
Put me on a scene of one. I just want to create this in my own mind's eye. You've got a dialogue scene that you're doing with a couple of different, you're single camera during all this stuff, I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah.
With the 2 over the shoulder and all that. How many takes would you do on something like that?
I tried not to do more than 2 takes.
I was going to say, because in your mind, you're rolling the cost of the film stock.
Exactly. And I would try to stage things as much as possible where a 1-minute scene could be shot in a single setup.
Okay.
Yeah. Wherever that was possible. You can't do that for a whole feature film.
No.
You have to have some close-ups and you have to have some interaction. Have to have an occasional dolly movement, those sort of things. But for the most part, I would try to be as miserly with camera setups as I possibly could.
Minute at a time, lockdown shot. Interesting.
Yeah. I did a lot of films that way. I became known as that guy down in Texas that does them real cheap. So I had a lot of people in California paying me to do that because they couldn't do them that cheaply out in Los Angeles.
Did you have somebody's done a little bit of did you have a cadre of actors that you then...
Oh, I did.
A repertoire company?
Yeah. Once, by the time I got around to my 4th film, my 5th film, I had a group of actors that I felt good about working with, that I really enjoyed working with.
Yeah.
And so I would call them back and they would introduce me to friends of theirs that wanted to be in films. And usually because they were such good friends, they knew this was someone that was, not everybody is good for a run and gun production. Not everybody can turn it on and off the way you have to.
That's right.
Not everybody can jump into the middle of the scene and I say, okay, just pick it up where you say this line and go forward from there. some people in their mind, they have to run the whole scene. They can't just jump right in.
There's not a lot of time for method acting, is there?
Not really.
This comes back to the know your lines and hit your mark.
Exactly. Know your lines and hit your mark. And even though young actors aspiring getting in their first film, they have aspirations of creating art.
Of course.
By that time, I was no longer aspiring to creating art. I was just, this is a product. I have 90 days to deliver it. It's got to meet certain expectations. Beyond that, I know I'm not going to win any awards, but I am going to get a paycheck. When I had a wife and kids at that time, so I needed money.
That's quite impressive. So you were going, actually, the same thing is true of some video podcasts now. You don't go for the 100% product. You got to go for 80 to 85 because it's such a diminishing return.
It's a very diminishing return. In fact, Andy Anderson, I took a film class from him at UTA. He had a moment of fame where he did a couple of independent features in the late 80s, early 90s. And Andy told me when I was 17 years old, he said, you got to know when enough is enough. If you're going to do independent film, you got to know when enough is enough. He said, you will spend half your time getting it 80% there.
Yes.
And then if you insist on getting it 100% there, you're going to spend an equal amount of time just for that additional 20%. You got to know when 80% is enough.
And unlike some creative products now, you had time and materials. Film stock. Now, you basically have a time investment. And so if you're doing a solo thing, okay, so you've taken more of your time. You wasted your time. You're not burning film all that time.
Right.
This is just so intriguing now. And let's go back. You've got a couple of VHS copies out there, VHS and
No, I have DVDs and Blu-rays.
Some of the that originated on VHS, I'm getting.
They did. I did a really low-budget horror film called The Abomination in 1986. And it got a cult following, but then it was impossible to find because it had been a sort of a limited release on VHS, but it had this sort of holy grail kind of mythos around it for many years. People would look me up and ask me if I had any old copies of it. And I'm like, no. And for a long time, I was out of the film business. I didn't really want anything to do with it. But it got re-released on Blu-ray, and that really exploded, opened it up to a new generation of people who had only heard about it, but had never really had the chance to see it because so much had been written about it on the internet and everything. But that's a very bizarre film about this farm woman in a small town in Texas. We shot it in Poolville, Texas. She's addicted to watching a televangelist named Brother Fogg on the TV. And Brother Fogg tells her she's got a tumor, but he can heal her. So she puts her hands on the TV and he prays and everything. That night she coughs up a tumor and throws it in her trash can. The tumor crawls out of the trash can. While her son is sleeping, it crawls into his mouth, and then it takes over his mind, and he begins regurgitating these tumors all over the place and planting them all around the house and killing people to feed these growing tumors that turn into these huge, toothy, red abominations.
So was this your own creation, or was this a made-to-spec piece? Was this your...
That was my own creation.
I'm not surprised. I must take a particular mind to create that level of product.
And you know what? That I did 21 films between 1984 and 1996. 2 of them are still in demand. 2 of them appeal to today's audience.
Yeah.
One is The Abomination. The other is Replicator. And both of those were films that once I'd made them, nobody wanted anything to do with them. They're like, why would you make such an insane movie? This is a piece of shit. Get it out of my office. I said things like, I'd seen better films on my grandmother's eye, or this is grainy. Did you shoot it on whole wheat? Everyone made fun of my films when I first completed them, and people had tried to talk me out of making them in the first place. But once in a while, as an artist, you have to do just what's inside you trying to get out. And both of those films are very well appreciated by a large fan base now.
Are any of them available on a streaming basis?
Yeah. I think they're all available on Tubi right now, if I'm not mistaken.
So at the end, as a teaser or a tag on this podcast, if I show all this on the description, the names, people could search those and find them and buy them.
Yeah, sure.
and you can make some money off of them.
Thank you.
Or a little bit. Anyway, I want to see the special effects of this gross tumor movie that you're...
We did the best that we could, and I have to say it's an odd thing to think, but the effects in The Abomination owe as much to Jim Henson as to anyone, because I had watched a documentary about Jim Henson, how he made the puppets and all this kind of stuff, and I thought, I could do that with monster puppets. Thank you, Jim Henson.
Scott McCormick, I could keep talking to you for about episode 3, 4, and 5 if we kept on. It's Bret McCormick's art, video, film, creativity at the Proletariat for this run of Art Walk. Now, I want to throw one more caveat on the end of this thing, and that is that we may, at the end of this Art Walk sequence, do a film festival.
Ah, that would be wonderful.
Where we bring some of your things in. We have the popcorn.
I would love
and
that,
if you could be a guest, how often do you get to have the producer, director, creator of several films present?
And craft service guy.
At craft service. There you go. And went to the sandwich store as well. Or brought the ham and cheese. Listen, if you provided sandwiches, that was much more than I usually get.
I used to tell people that were working for me, if the restaurant has real plates, it's too good for my crew. So don't get anything from places that have real plates.
Paper plates are good.
Yeah.
Well, on that, we will say, Bret McCormick, thank you so very much for part 2 from the Proletariat.
Thank you, Jim.
This has been From the Pro, conversations with the creators at the Proletariat. Theme percussion created and performed by Patrick Wheeler, mastered by Chris Criticos. From the Pro is a Jim Bratton production. I'm Sierra Sakel.